Today we visit Brothers Vilgalys Spirits Company in North Carolina, the most famous product of which is the original Lithuanian Krupnikas made here in North Carolina. And I am visiting the owner of the company.
Hello.
So could you tell more about what is Krupnikas?
Krupnikas is a Lithuanian style spiced honey liqueur. And the way we got into this was a recipe my dad was making at home when I was a kid, and I started making it for my friends in college. It got me invited to a lot of parties. I ended up coming back to North Carolina, and the whole thing kind of repeated itself. It just got very popular with people we would give it to and everything. And eventually we decided, let's give this a shot and see if it'll sell on American shelves. And so it's made from local wildflower honey. We use North Carolina wildflower honey and 15 spices, and then we use a grain alcohol spirit base for it.
I see you have different types of Krupnikas here. What are the differences between the different types?
So our different types, we have the original that we started with. This is our classic recipe. We also make a gold reserve, which is the leftover spices are left to age for a lot longer. And so this is much richer, has a lot more complexity. It's also more expensive. And then we have the winter cranberry Krupnikas. And this was a recipe that was our own creation. We would make this at home on the stove in the holidays, and it just got very popular with my dad's parties, and eventually we introduced it here in North Carolina. And so we make this just only in the wintertime, and people really like it.
It's interesting that back in Lithuania itself, after the Soviet occupation, Krupnikas is actually not that popular anymore as the traditions changed. But when we visit the Lithuanian communities in North America, the ones which have left Lithuania during World War II, Krupnikas is often the most popular form of alcoholic beverage that is associated with Lithuania. So let's now go and see how Krupnikas is made here in this distillery.
Well, welcome to Brothers Vilgalys Spirits Company. So this is our setup where we produce everything. The Krupnikas, the spirit base itself, lives in that fire safety cabinet in the corner. What we do is we buy 190 proof grain alcohol. Our license as a distillery, we don't actually distill the base spirit ourselves. But for Krupnikas, we start out boiling water in this big kettle, and that will add about 100 pounds, about 30 kilos of spices to. And we'll boil that for a few hours. Once that is ready, the whole thing is on a scale so we can measure it, make sure it gets to the right level. When that is ready, we will add some local honey that we buy from a few beekeepers around the area. And so this is wildflower honey. It has a lot of depth and a lot of flavor and a lot of character to it. We'll blend a few buckets of that in, and then we mix in the alcohol and we let it rest for a week or two. After that, we will move over all of the clear product. We have some stuff at the bottom that is a mix of spices and proteins from the honey and other sediment and everything like that. And there's nothing wrong with this, but it doesn't look good, so we leave it behind. And that's actually what the gold reserve will come from later. Once it is ready to go, it will go over to our bottling area over here. And so this is really just where we fill everything up. So there's a bottle filling machine. We will cork them by hand. They get a label put on them, and then the last step is they get sealed up with a bottler's name on the top. And then from here, it'll be shipped out to either the North Carolina liquor stores or to our other distributors when we have those. And then we also can sell a few bottles here at the distillery.
When we visit Lithuanian heritage sites in America, and we meet the caretakers of these sites or the developers of these sites, very often these are actually older people. And they often say that the youngsters are not really interested in their traditions and such. And here you are actually of our own age, and you still decided to open this distillery here. So what was your path to it? I mean, why did not you start a microbrewery, for example, or something else, and you decided to keep the traditions going and have a Lithuanian flag here and so on, even though you have been born in America and your father actually was born in America and only your grandparents came?
The real reason behind starting this was just how popular our Krupnikas kind of became on its own. So my dad would always make it for the holidays, and we'd have family get-togethers to serve it at. But it really was something that as he served it to his other friends, not Lithuanian people, but they just really liked the flavor and everything that it offered. And I started doing the same thing for my friends when I went to college, which was out in UC Santa Barbara. And then I moved back to Durham after that and was sharing it with people, and it just got very popular and kind of reached the point where people I didn't even know were telling me that they'd heard of this Krupnikas and that they had to try some. And so that was the biggest reason behind deciding to start this as a business. But as something, being part of a Lithuanian identity, I have a very Lithuanian name despite being raised in the States. And so it's something I've always had to explain to people, and, something I have been very proud of, so we've kind of maintained a lot of knowledge or traditions, I guess, on our side.
North Carolina isn't exactly known for its Lithuanian community. Actually, there is not a single other site of Lithuanian heritage in North Carolina, and those are pretty scarce all over the southern United States. So who is your client, and is it difficult to actually make Krupnikas and sell Krupnikas here?
What's funny is we do have Lithuanians will just come out of the woodwork and find us sometimes. And we did do a little bit of sales out of state. But for the most part, the people who are our core customers are just local Americans who really like it. And, either they really like the flavors, or they have cocktails that they use, or we work with a lot of local bars and restaurants that have put us in different drinks and things like that. And so it's kind of taken on its own momentum separate from all of that. That said, it's really fun to have something that we can anchor it to and have a tradition that it comes back to.
I am very glad to hear that. And in fact, when we go across different states of America, and we visit even large Lithuanian communities, often there is a problem to find a source for Lithuanian food or Lithuanian drinks, especially locally made Lithuanian food and Lithuanian drinks. And it is sometimes difficult to understand why, because it is much easier to retain, let's say, food traditions than, for example, language traditions, as language is quite difficult to learn. But many people want this food and drinks, but often they are unable to get it. They ask us where could they get it, but we often are only able to say that the nearest place to get it is in Chicago, for example. So it's very nice to see that even in other parts of the United States of America, the Lithuanian food and drinks traditions are going on, even in the next generations. And I would like to thank you, Rimas, for continuing doing that.